Hey everyone, get ready for a spine-chilling experience. I'm Jack, and I'm sharing true horror stories with you. Tune in as I dive into these real-life horrors that you won't believe are true, but they are. Grab your popcorn and maybe a blanket and join me on this terrifying journey. We are doing very hard works to make every episode enjoyable for you. So, have a small request to all of you. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on future spine-tingling stories. And if I have any faults or did any wrong, then please advise. Stay safe and keep watching the dark side of the road. Story 1. The Road That Eats You. The road wasn't on any map. Jake, Lauren, Ben, and Amber had been hiking for hours, trying to reach an abandoned ranger station deep in the woods. But as the sun began to set, they found something else instead. A road. It stretched before them in a perfect, straight line, cutting through the dense forest like a scar. The asphalt was cracked and covered in vines, as if nature had been trying to reclaim it. Faded yellow lines ran down the center, barely visible beneath years of dust and decay. "What the hell?" Jake muttered, stepping closer. "This wasn't on the GPS," Lauren said, glancing at her phone. "No signal." Amber shivered. "I don't like this. Roads don't just appear." Ben laughed. "It's probably an old logging road. Maybe it leads somewhere cool." Lauren hesitated. "I don't know. Something feels wrong." But the others were already stepping onto the road, and so, reluctantly, she followed. The moment their feet touched the asphalt, the forest went silent. No wind, no birds, no rustling leaves. Just nothing. Jake frowned. "Do you hear that?" "Hear what?" Amber asked, glancing around. "Exactly." A strange tension settled over them. The air felt heavier. It was subtle at first, but with every step they took, the silence seemed to press in tighter, like an invisible force wrapping around their throats. Ben kicked a loose rock, watching it bounce down the road. "Come on, let's just see where it goes." They walked for another 15 minutes. The trees lining the road looked taller than before, growing impossibly straight, their trunks dark as charcoal. And then Lauren noticed something else. The road looked newer now. The cracks were gone. The faded yellow lines had brightened. Even the vines had disappeared. It was as if the road had been freshly paved while they weren't looking. "Guys," Lauren's voice was barely a whisper, "this road, it's changing." Amber turned to look back the way they came. Her breath hitched. The path behind them was gone. There was no sign of the overgrown, abandoned road they had stepped onto. No vines, no cracks, no dust, just smooth, black asphalt stretching endlessly in both directions, as if the road had swallowed its past. Amber screamed. She bolted, sprinting back the way they came, her footsteps loud in the unnatural silence. The others followed, panic setting in. But no matter how far they ran, the road didn't end. The trees loomed taller, the sky darkened, the air thickened. Amber stopped, panting. "This isn't possible," she gasped. Then they noticed the footprints, their own footprints, leading in circles. Jake spun in place. "What the hell is this?" Lauren felt her pulse hammering in her ears. "We need to get off the road." But when they tried, something pushed them back. An invisible wall. The moment they stepped off the asphalt, their bodies met a force, like walking into a wall of thick, wet cement. The harder they pushed, the more the pressure increased, until their heads throbbed and their stomachs twisted with nausea. "We're trapped," Ben whispered. Then the road pulsed beneath him, a deep, low thump like a heartbeat. And Amber screamed again. She wasn't standing on the road anymore. She was sinking into it. Her feet had already disappeared beneath the asphalt. Like it had turned to liquid, she flailed, reaching out, but the road was devouring her inch by inch. "Help me." Jake grabbed her arm, pulling with all his strength, but the road pulled harder. The asphalt rippled like tar, swallowing her legs, her waist. Her fingers slipped from Jake's grasp as her torso sank beneath the surface. Her scream was cut off as the road sealed over her. Gone. The silence deepened. Jake staggered back, gasping. No. Lauren clamped a hand over her mouth. Amber had just disappeared, like she had never been there at all. And then the road pulsed again. Panic took over. They ran, but the road had no end. It stretched forever, straight and endless. The sky above was black now, devoid of stars or a moon. Then Jake stumbled. Lauren turned just in time to see him drop to his knees. His skin was pale. His breath came in shallow gasps. "Jake." He lifted his hands. They were coated in black tar. The road had marked him. And then, before anyone could react, Jake was yanked downward. The asphalt swallowed him in seconds like quicksand. His terrified eyes locked onto Lauren's before the road silenced him forever. Lauren and Ben were the only ones left. Ben grabbed her wrist. "We have to." He never finished his sentence. The road split open beneath him. His body jerked downward, his mouth forming a silent scream as something in the blackness pulled him under. Lauren was alone. She stood there, shaking, unable to move. The road was pristine now, smooth and untouched. No sign that her friends had ever existed. No footprints, no bodies, no sound. The road had eaten them, and it was still hungry. The air grew thick again. The asphalt pulsed beneath her feet. Lauren took a shaky breath. "Please." The road did not care. Something unseen wrapped around her ankles, cold and unrelenting. As she sank into the asphalt, she didn't scream. She knew no one would hear, because the road had already erased them all, and by morning it would be waiting, silent, patient, for the next traveler to wander too far into the woods, for the next soul to claim, for the next meal. Story 2, The Phantom Intersection. It started with a wrong turn. Martin had been driving for hours, trying to get home before midnight. The conference had run late, and he had ignored his GPS in favor of what he thought was a faster route. Big mistake. He was now deep in the back roads of some forgotten countryside, where the trees loomed like silent sentinels, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth. His headlights cut through the darkness, but the deeper he drove, the less familiar anything seemed. Then he saw it, an intersection. It appeared out of nowhere, a four-way stop in the middle of a desolate stretch of road. No signs, no lights, just a lonely junction surrounded by trees. Martin slowed down. He checked his GPS. Recalculating. The screen flickered. No signal. Frustrated, he picked a direction and turned right. 15 minutes later, he was back at the same intersection. Martin frowned. He must have taken a wrong turn somewhere. He turned left this time. The road stretched on, winding through the dense forest. His grip on the steering wheel tightened as a creeping unease settled in his chest. It was too quiet. No cars, no houses, no signs of life. Just an endless expanse of trees. And then the intersection appeared again. His pulse spiked. That wasn't possible. He'd driven in a straight line. Swallowing his nerves, he took the opposite route, the one he hadn't tried yet. His headlights carved through the night as he pressed forward. The air in the car felt heavier, like a storm was brewing inside the vehicle itself. 20 minutes passed. Then, the intersection. Martin's stomach dropped. He pulled over, heart pounding. He got out of the car, the cold air biting at his skin. There were no signs, no landmarks, just an empty, endless road leading into the unknown. He turned, looking down each path. Then he saw it. A sign. It hadn't been there before. It was an old wooden post standing at the side of the road, its lettering barely visible under layers of grime. He stepped closer, brushing away the dirt. "Turn back." His breath caught in his throat. He turned on his heel, hurrying back to his car. He was getting out of here. He climbed into the driver's seat, started the engine, and floored it. As he drove, he noticed something in the rearview mirror. A figure, standing at the intersection, watching him. Martin's hands were clammy on the wheel. He kept glancing in the mirror, but the figure remained still, barely illuminated by the glow of his taillights. Another mile passed. The trees pressed in closer, their gnarled branches stretching like skeletal fingers toward the road. And then, the intersection again. But this time, it was different. Now, there were 3 figures, all standing perfectly still, all facing him. Martin's throat went dry. They weren't holding flashlights. They weren't wearing reflective clothing, yet somehow he could see them, too clearly traced in the dark. His instinct screamed at him to drive, so he did. He took a new direction, speeding down the road. The trees blurred by, the darkness pressing against the windshield. Then, he noticed something else. The road was changing. The pavement, once cracked and worn, now looked newer, pristine, untouched. The trees seemed taller, their bark darker, their leaves thick and unyielding. The sky overhead was blacker than before, like the stars had been swallowed whole. His foot stayed heavy on the gas pedal, and then, bam! Something hit the car. Martin slammed the brakes, skidding to a stop. His breath came in short gasps as he scanned the road. Nothing. He stepped out cautiously, heart hammering. The air smelled wrong, like burnt wood and something metallic. Then he turned toward the intersection, and the figures were standing right behind his car. Martin's vision blurred with fear. He scrambled back into the car, locking the doors. The car wouldn't start. The figures moved closer. Their faces weren't right. They were stretched, featureless ovals of pale skin, no eyes, no mouths, just smooth, empty voids where human features should have been. One of them raised an arm and pointed at him. The road shifted down beneath his car. The intersection stretched out, bending in ways that defied physics, looping into itself like a twisted Mobius strip. Martin screamed as his car began to fall. The road, the forest, the night sky, it all came collapsed inward, swallowing him whole. And then, silence. The intersection stood empty again. The trees swayed gently, whispering secrets to the wind. The old wooden sign remained, its warning barely visible beneath the grime. Then, a pair of headlights appeared in the distance. A new traveler, a lone car, driving through the night, looking for a shortcut home. As it approached the intersection, the figures emerged from the shadows, waiting, watching, and the road was ready to claim another. Story 3, The Red Lantern Road. Sam and Lily had been driving for hours. Their weekend trip to visit Lily's parents had stretched longer than expected, and now they were on the road well past midnight. The highway was empty, the only sound the steady hum of their tires against the asphalt. Lily checked the GPS. Turn left in 2 miles. We should stop soon, she murmured, stifling a yawn. Just a little farther, Sam said, his hands gripping the wheel. A road sign flashed past. Detour ahead, and the GPS recalculated. Rerouting, turn left now. Sam slowed as a narrow side road appeared, winding through the dense forest. The pavement was cracked, and weeds pushed up through the concrete. A wooden sign stood at the entrance, half hidden by vines. Old Winter's Road. Lily hesitated. I don't think this is a good idea. It's just a shortcut, Sam said. GPS says it'll save us 20 minutes. He turned onto the road. At first, it was just another country road, dark, silent, endless trees stretching into the night. The headlights barely cut through the thick mist clinging to the ground. Then Lily saw the first lantern. It was hanging from a tree branch just off the road, swaying gently. The glass was old and cracked, but inside, a red flame flickered eerily. Lily frowned. Did you see that? See what? Sam asked. Another lantern appeared, then another. Soon, the trees on either side of the road were lined with red lanterns, their dim glow casting an eerie light over the forest. Sam slowed the car. This doesn't feel right. Lily's fingers dug into her seat. Turn around. Sam nodded, but when he looked in the rearview mirror, his breath caught. The road behind them was gone. The lanterns stretched endlessly in both directions. They were trapped. A shadow flickered between the trees. Lily gasped. There's someone out there. Sam locked the doors instinctively. The car crept forward, the road twisting through the glowing red haze. Then, just ahead, a figure stood in the middle of the road. A man, dressed in an old, tattered coat. His head was bowed, his face obscured by tangled hair. Sam hit the brakes. The figure didn't move. Lily reached for her phone. No signal. We have to go, she whispered. Sam honked the horn. The sound echoed strangely, swallowed by the dense trees. The man slowly lifted his head. His eyes were gone. 2 hollow sockets stared back at them, filled with glowing red embers. The man's lips parted, turned back. His voice was a dry whisper, barely audible over the car's engine. We can't, Lily stammered. The man exhaled sharply. Then, from the trees, others began to emerge. They came in silence, stepping out of the darkness one by one, men, women, even children, all dressed in ragged clothing, their faces eerily blank. Their eyes burned with the same red glow as the lanterns. They lined the road. Hundreds of them, and they were all staring at Sam and Lily. The air grew thick with the scent of smoke. Sam's foot slammed on the gas. The car shot forward, tires skidding on the cracked pavement. The lanterns flickered wildly as they raced past. The figures didn't move. Then Lily saw something worse. More lanterns. More figures. The road ahead was still lined with them. Her voice trembled. We're not getting out, are we? Sam's grip tightened on the wheel. There has to be an end. But as the road twisted and turned, the same lanterns, the same people, kept appearing. They weren't moving forward. They were driving in a loop. Sam's breaths were ragged. The gas gauge was dropping fast. We can't stop, he muttered. Lily's hands were shaking. She watched as one of the figures, a woman in a torn dress, stepped onto the road. Sam swerved to avoid her. Then another figure stepped forward, and another, until the road ahead was blocked completely. Sam slammed the brakes. The figures stood, unmoving. Then the first man, the one they had seen in the road, stepped closer. He pointed at Lily. His voice was like wind through dead leaves. One must stay. Lily's blood ran cold. Sam shook his head. Number, we're not playing your game. The man tilted his head. A sharp wind rushed through the trees. The lanterns flared brighter. The figures moved closer. Lily gripped Sam's hand. What do we do? Then she saw something. In the distance, beyond the figures, a gap. An opening in the lanterns. Drive through them, she whispered. Sam hesitated. Then he slammed the gas. The car roared forward. The figures did not move. There was no impact. They simply vanished. The road shifted. And suddenly, they were back on the highway. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The road stretched before them, normal again. No lanterns, no figures, just the endless night. Lily checked her phone. Full signal. She exhaled sharply. What the hell was that? Sam swallowed hard. I don't know, but we're never taking a shortcut again. They drove in silence. Then, a faint red glow flickered in the distance, hanging from a tree by the roadside. A single red lantern, still burning, waiting for the next traveler. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, to show your support, comment to share your thoughts or ask questions, and don't forget to subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.